The text came through while I was pulling maintenance duty on our convoy vehicles in Afghanistan. The blue light of my phone cut through the desert darkness as I read the message that would change everything. Danny, we sold the house on Maple Street for $800,000. Don't worry about coming back here when your deployment ends. The money is ours now. You'll figure something out. Mom. I stared at the screen for a long moment, the weight of betrayal settling in my chest like shrapnel. The house on Maple Street wasn't just any house. It was the home where I'd grown up, where Dad had taught me to throw a baseball, where I'd taken my prom photos. More importantly, it was the house Dad had specifically left to me in his will when he died 2 years ago. But Mom had been living there since Dad's death, and I'd been too busy with military commitments to deal with the legal paperwork. I'd trusted her to handle things while I was serving overseas. Clearly that trust had been misplaced. I typed back a simple reply, "Congratulations on the sale." What Mom didn't know, what none of my family knew, was that I hadn't exactly been struggling financially during my 8 years in the Army. While they thought I was just another grunt sending home my modest enlisted pay, I'd actually been building something extraordinary. It started in my second deployment, when I noticed how inefficient military supply chains were. Equipment would sit in warehouses for months while units in the field desperately needed it. So I developed a logistics tracking software during my off hours, working on my laptop in my bunk between missions. When I got back stateside, I refined the software and pitched it to defense contractors. Within 6 months, I had my first $1 million contract. Within 2 years, I had a company worth $47 million. Highland Logistics Solutions now manage supply chains for 3 branches of the military and 12 major corporations. But I'd kept it all quiet. My family knew I was doing some computer stuff in addition to my Army duties, but they had no idea about the scale of what I'd built. As far as they were concerned, I was still the same kid who'd enlisted right out of high school because I couldn't afford college. They had no idea that I'd been watching the Maple Street house situation very carefully through my lawyers. They definitely had no idea that when the house went up for sale 3 weeks ago, the investment company that submitted the highest bid was actually one of my shell corporations. My family had just sold my childhood home back to me for $800,000, and they thought they were stealing it from me. I spent the rest of my deployment planning my return. 3 months later, when my boots hit American soil at Dover Air Force Base, I was ready to go home and reclaim what was mine. The flight from Delaware to Denver gave me time to review the files my lawyers had prepared. The sale had gone through exactly as planned. Highland Properties LC, my shell company, now officially owned 2847 Maple Street. My family had taken their $800,000 and scattered to the winds, believing they'd pulled off the perfect heist. Mom had moved into a luxury condo downtown. My older brother Jake had bought a new truck and boat with his share. My sister Amanda had put a down payment on a house in the suburbs. They were all spending money they thought they'd stolen from their deployed son and brother. I caught a cab from the airport straight to Maple Street. It was a warm September afternoon, and the neighborhood looked exactly like I remembered. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained yards, the kind of place where kids still rode bikes and neighbors knew each other's names. The house looked different though. Mom had clearly done some work before putting it on the market. New paint, landscaped yard, updated fixtures visible through the windows. She'd invested money in making it attractive to buyers, probably using the last of Dad's life insurance. I walked up the front steps and used my key, the same key I'd carried through 3 deployments, the one Dad had given me when I turned 16. It still worked. The inside of the house took my breath away. Mom had essentially erased every trace of our family's presence. New furniture, new paint, neutral colors throughout. The living room where Dad used to watch football was now some kind of modern showpiece. The kitchen where Mom used to bake cookies for school fundraisers looked like something from a magazine. It was beautiful, but it wasn't home anymore. I was standing in the living room processing the changes when I heard a car door slam outside. Through the window I could see Mom's Toyota Camry in the driveway. She was probably here to get something she'd forgotten. The front door opened and I heard her voice calling out, "Hello? Is someone here?" "In the living room, Mom." She appeared in the doorway and I watched her face cycle through confusion, shock, and then something approaching fear. "Danny, what are you doing here? How did you get in?" "I used my key." But you can't be here. This house has been sold. The new owners could call the police." I smiled. "Actually, they probably won't. Danny, you need to leave." I know you're upset about the house, but it's done. We needed the money and you were gone and... Where's my share? Mom's face flushed. Your share. Of the $800,000. Dad left me the house, so I assume you set aside my portion of the sale proceeds. She looked genuinely surprised that I was asking. Danny, we spent that money on family expenses. Taking care of the house while you were gone, property taxes, maintenance. There's nothing left. I see. So you sold my house and kept all the money. It wasn't your house. It was the family home. According to Dad's will, it was my house. I have the paperwork if you'd like to review it. Mom sat down heavily on the new couch, a couch she'd bought with money from selling my house. Danny, you have to understand. You were deployed, you were unreachable half the time, and we had bills to pay. The house was just sitting there. I was serving my country. I know, and we're proud of you, but that doesn't pay the mortgage. What mortgage? Dad paid off the house 15 years ago. Mom's face went pale. She'd been caught in a lie and we both knew it. Look, she said, standing up, this is all very complicated, but the bottom line is that the house is sold. You need to accept that and move on. You're right, I said. The house is sold. But I think you should meet the new owner. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. Richard? It's Danny. I'm at the property now. Can you come over and explain the ownership situation to my family? Mom was staring at me with growing confusion. Yes, bring all the paperwork. And Richard? Bring the eviction notices too. I hung up and looked at Mom. He'll be here in 20 minutes. Eviction notices? Danny, what's going on? Sit down, Mom. We need to talk. She sat back down and I took the chair across from her. The same chair where Dad used to read his evening newspaper. 8 years ago when I enlisted, you all thought I was throwing my life away. Remember? Jake said I was too stupid for college, so I might as well go play soldier. Danny, we never said. Amanda said the military was for people who couldn't make it in the real world. You said you were disappointed that I wasn't following in Dad's footsteps. Mom's voice was quiet. We were worried about you. Were you worried when I sent money home during my first deployment? $500 a month to help with expenses. That was very generous. Were you worried when I sent $1,000 for Jake's wedding? Or when I paid for Amanda's car repairs? Or when I covered Dad's medical bills that insurance wouldn't pay? Mom was starting to look uncomfortable. You've always been good to the family. But you still thought I was a failure, didn't you? Poor Danny, stuck in the army because he couldn't do anything else. That's not true. Isn't it? When Dad died and left me the house, what did you say? Mom was quiet. You said it was unfair because I'd never appreciate it like the rest of the family would. You said I'd probably just sell it anyway because I didn't understand the value of family history. I was grieving. And then when I was deployed and couldn't come home for the funeral because I was in the middle of a combat zone, what did Jake say? Danny, please don't. He said it figured that I'd let the family down when they needed me most. He said I chose the army over family. Mom was crying now, but I wasn't done. So when the opportunity came to sell the house and cut me out of the proceeds, it probably felt justified, didn't it? Poor Danny, off playing soldier while the real family handled real responsibilities. It wasn't like that. What was it like? Before Mom could answer, a car pulled into the driveway. Through the window I could see Richard Martinez, my lawyer, getting out of his BMW with a briefcase. That's my lawyer, I said. He's going to explain some things to you. Richard knocked and I let him in. He was a sharp man in his 50s who'd handled all my business affairs while I was deployed. Mrs. Patterson, he said, nodding to my mother. I'm Richard Martinez, Mr. Patterson's attorney. Nice to meet you, Mom said uncertainly. Richard, could you explain to my mother who purchased this house? Certainly. Richard opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder. The property at 2847 Maple Street was purchased by Highland Properties LLC for $800,000. Highland Properties is a wholly owned subsidiary of Highland Logistics Solutions. Mom looked confused. I don't understand. Highland Logistics Solutions is your son's company, Mrs. Patterson. Danny owns Highland Properties, which means he owns this house. The color drained from Mom's face. That's impossible. Danny doesn't have that kind of money. Richard smiled. Actually, Highland Logistics Solutions had revenues of $73 million last year. Your son is quite successful. $73 million? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. The company specializes in military and corporate supply chain management. It's revolutionized how large organizations track and distribute resources. Mom turned to look at me. Danny, is this true? It's true. But you never said anything. We thought you were. You thought I was a failure. So I let you think that. Richard cleared his throat. There's another matter we need to discuss. Mrs. Patterson, you're currently residing in this property without permission from the legal owner. But I live here. This is my home. Actually, your tenancy ended when you completed the sale. You have no legal right to be here. Mom looked back and forth between Richard and me. Danny, you can't kick me out. I'm your mother. The same mother who sold my inheritance and kept all the money? We can work this out as a family. Can we? Where were the family discussions when you decided to sell the house? Where was the family meeting when you divided up the money? Richard pulled out another document. Mrs. Patterson, this is a formal notice to vacate. You have 30 days to remove your belongings and vacate the premises. 30 days? Where am I supposed to go? I assume you can use some of the $800,000 you made from selling the house to find new accommodations. Mom was now openly crying. Danny, please. I know we made mistakes, but we're family. Are we? Because when I was getting shot at in Afghanistan, my family was back home stealing my inheritance. We didn't steal anything. You sold property that didn't belong to you and kept money that wasn't yours. What would you call that? Before Mom could answer, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Jake's number. Excuse me, I said, answering the call. Hey Jake. Danny. Dude, what the hell is going on? Mom just called me crying something about lawyers and eviction notices. It's pretty simple. I'm the new owner of the house on Maple Street. What are you talking about? We sold that house. You sold it to my company. There was a long pause. Your company? Highland Logistics Solutions. Maybe you've heard of it? We handle supply chains for major corporations and government agencies. Danny, what are you saying? I'm saying that while you all thought I was a loser playing soldier, I built a company worth more than all of your houses combined. That's impossible. Is it? You never asked what I was doing with my computer skills. You just assumed I was wasting time. But you send money home. If you were rich, why would you? Because I thought you were my family. I thought you needed help. I could hear Jake talking to someone in the background, probably his wife. Danny, if this is true, then we need to talk. As a family. We're talking. I'm talking to you. Mom's here with my lawyer, and in about 10 minutes, Amanda will probably call too. This is crazy. You can't just kick Mom out of her house. It's not her house. It's my house. It always was my house according to Dad's will. But we needed the money. For what? Jake, you bought a $60,000 truck with your share. Amanda bought a house. Mom moved into a luxury condo. None of that sounds like emergency expenses. Richard tapped his watch and pointed to another document. I nodded. Jake, I have to go. My lawyer has more paperwork to review with Mom. Danny, wait. We can fix this. How? I don't know, but there has to be a way. There's a way. You can all return the money you stole from me and we can pretend this never happened. Return the money? Danny, we spent it. Then I guess Mom has 30 days to find a new place to live. I hung up and turned back to Richard and Mom. The next document is a statement of damages, Richard said. Mr. Patterson is entitled to compensation for the unauthorized sale of his property. What kind of compensation? Mom asked weakly. Market rate rental value for the time you occupied the property without permission, plus legal fees, plus the cost of reversing the unauthorized transaction. How much? Approximately $180,000. Mom looked like she was going to faint. I don't have that kind of money. Then we'll need to discuss payment arrangements, Richard said. My phone rang again. Amanda this time. Let me guess, I said, answering. Jake called you. Danny, what the hell is happening? Jake says you own some big company and you're kicking Mom out of the house. That's essentially correct. This is insane. You're in the army. You don't own companies. I'm a computer programmer who happens to serve in the army. The two aren't mutually exclusive. But you never said anything. When would I have said something? During one of our conversations where you told me I was wasting my life. Or maybe during the family dinner where Jake said the military was for people too dumb for real jobs. We never said that. Amanda, I have it recorded. I've been documenting family conversations for years. There was silence on the other end. Look, Amanda finally said, maybe we said some things we shouldn't have. But you can't destroy the family over this. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just claiming what was legally mine to begin with. What do you want from us? I want my inheritance back. The house was worth $800,000. You all took that money. I want it returned. Danny, we don't have it. We spent it. Then you'll need to figure out how to get it back. I hung up and looked at Mom, who was now sitting with her head in her hands. Richard, can you give us a few minutes alone? Of course. I'll wait in the car. After Richard left, I sat down across from Mom. Danny, she said without looking up, I'm sorry. We're all sorry. We made a terrible mistake. What was the mistake, Mom? Selling the house or not thinking I'd find out about it? Both. All of it. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. We thought you'd never come back here. You seemed so disconnected from the family. I was deployed. In a war zone. I know, but you never talked about coming home, never talked about settling down here. It seemed like you'd moved on from all of us. So you decided to move on from me too. It wasn't like that. What was it like? Mom was quiet for a long moment. It was like, we were afraid you'd grown too big for us. You had this whole other life, this important military career. We felt left behind. So you stole my inheritance to feel better about yourselves? We didn't think of it as stealing. We thought of it as family taking care of family. I looked around the room, my room in my house that they tried to steal. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You have 30 days to move out. During that time, you and Jake and Amanda are going to figure out how to return the money you took. Danny, we can't. You can sell the truck, sell Amanda's house, move out of the luxury condo. Return the money you stole and we'll call it even. And if we can't? Then I'll file criminal charges for theft and fraud, and you'll return the money anyway plus go to jail. Mom was crying again. This will destroy the family. The family was destroyed the moment you decided I didn't deserve what Dad left me. What do you want from us? I want my family back. The family that supported each other, that trusted each other, that didn't steal from each other. How do we do that? You start by admitting what you did was wrong. Not wrong because you got caught, but wrong because it was theft. It was wrong, Mom said quietly. And then you figure out how to make it right. What if we can't get all the money back? I thought about that for a moment. Then we'll work out a payment plan. But the first step is admitting what you did and committing to fixing it. Mom nodded. What about the house? What about it? Are you going to live here? I don't know yet. Maybe. Or maybe I'll rent it out. Or maybe I'll turn it into something else entirely. It's your house, she said quietly. Yes. It is. Richard came back inside and we spent the next hour going over paperwork. Mom signed acknowledgments of the debt, agreed to the moving timeline, and received copies of all the legal documents. After she left, I sat alone in the house for the first time in 8 years. It felt different now, not just because of the new furniture and paint, but because of what had happened here. This was no longer the house where I'd grown up. It was the house where I'd learned that family loyalty was a one-way street. But it was also the house where I'd just proven that sometimes the underestimated son becomes the one with all the power. 6 weeks later, Jake sold his truck and boat. Amanda put her house back on the market. Mom moved into a modest apartment and took a part-time job to help pay back what they owed me. They returned $640,000 of the original $800,000. I accepted a payment plan for the rest, not because I needed the money, but because I needed them to understand the weight of what they'd done. The house on Maple Street became the headquarters for Highland Logistics Solutions civilian operations. I kept Dad's study exactly as it was, but converted the rest of the house into a modern office space. And every morning when I walk through the front door with the same key Dad gave me when I was 16, I remember that sometimes coming home means becoming someone your family never expected you to be. The deployed soldier had become the CEO. The family disappointment had become the family provider. And the son they tried to steal from had become the man who owned everything they thought they could take.